Well, if you
Some kind of mineral. Well, the mineral isn't the problem. It's like the mineral is dissolved in alcohol or something. The mineral itself is a piece of rock. That's true. Minerals are fun.
Okay, I'm going to start learning sponsors, and then hopefully by then everybody will be in. Okay. Are you learning Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chanok Zundel, friends of Mela Skotsky, Moshe Zelig Ben Mordechai, Martin Lipman and family, in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bas Pinchas, friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Ze'ev, friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov, friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir. A month of learning, Malin Haran Haller, in memory of his mother, Fegabas Yaakov, B. Pizer, in memory of her stepfather, Avram Michal Ben Shmuel Halevi. Amen. Jill and Perry Meltzer, okay, in memory of her father, Yaakov Ben Yosef, Andrea and David Dolney, in memory of her mother, Edith Sinabat Shimshon, friends and students of Rabbi Shalom Kornblum, Rav Shalom Ben Mordechai, Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer Ben Tzvi Hirsch, Mark Scher, in memory of his father, Mordechai Ben Menachem Manish, and Mark Linder, in memory of his nephew, Eretz Paul Ben Sirlos. A week of learning by Kayla Haino, in memory of her father, Chaim Yehuda Leib Ben Betzalel, Susan Fruchter Kramer and Shelley Kramer, in memory of her mother, Bela Bas Yeshaya. Today being the 27th, we have a day of learning by Jay and Florence Levy, in memory of his father, Yitzchak Isaac Ben Avram Chaim Dov. And Shem is having Aliyah, Crank Rafael Velti Yashir Shem Latliya, and L'chol B'nai Israel a good Gaben Shia. That's it. Okay. We've got individual days of learning all the way through to the end of the week. Okay, where are we today? How about we? All right.
They couldn't resist that.
I know, I'm sure they couldn't. Okay. Right, according to again, just a reminder, okay, that we need to let Hershey know if we're coming to the Siyum by tonight. He'll be at Mincha tonight, but at least the latest is tomorrow morning. Okay, so that he can let Avi know at Century Grill.
Okay, we have to bring them ours, so there's gonna be.
I'll
be- Thanks.
We'll have, okay,
Or it's not
You know,
really
Xerox,
Xerox.
can you in all
No, I will be all.
okay, all right. Okay,
HP.
all right. And since you're gonna start the Sota on Friday, might as well do it at least do the Mishnah. All right?
As the master.
Okay. Okay, so I want to just point out as we start the new Mishnah on the top of Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, again, remember we've been talking about the fact that the structure of the Mishnah originally was all the Mishnayot together, and then the Gemaras came afterwards and things like that. And so we begin to see that there really is this connection, okay, as we saw previously, between one Mishnah talking about one element where we saw was one more stricture for women than for men, and then coming back and saying stricture for servants more than women. Okay. Then we saw the business of whether a slave could become a Canaanite slave could become could do Nazir, okay, or not, and all of that, and okay, and then he runs away. So we can understand the flow of the Mishnah, right? So I just wanted to remind us of that, okay, as we pick up in our new Mishnah for today on Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. Matnitin, says our Mishnah, Nazir Shegilech. Okay, we're talking after the offerings. Okay, that this Nazir had done his hair cutting, his shaving. V'nodalo shehu tameh, and it's then suddenly becomes known to him, all right, that somehow he became tameh. Okay, now the question, of course, is going to be a couple things. Number one, okay, when did he become tameh? Was it during his Nazirus, or it was totally after the shaving? Okay, or was it between the offerings and the shaving? Okay, so that was that's one aspect of a question that we could.
Was after, there's no question.
Well, then we're going to see. The Gemara should be telling us that, right?
We don't have that's a given.
Okay, that's what we're going to see. The Gemara is going to present that as okay. So it's going to deal with it on a logical basis. Okay, right, and it's going to eventually tell us if it was during. Okay, then he would have had to go through the appropriate tahara, and he would have had to put it off, and he would have forfeited, etc. Everything we know already. Okay, right. So then, but there's another question here. All right. Okay, is what kind of tumor also was this person exposed to? And that's how we're going to continue here. Okay, right? Shehu tameh im tumah yedu'ah, if it's in a sense a tumah like tumas mace, okay, and it's a known or recognized or okay, what happens? So tear, we would know then that forfeits what had come before. V'im tumas tahom, and if we're going to call it a tumas tahom, okay, all right, what would that be? A source of tumah that was not known to anyone, okay, and we're going to get a more detailed description of that in the Gemara, clarification. Eino soter, it would not cause a forfeiture. Im ad shalo gileach. Now we come back to the next logical sequence. If it occurred, im ad shalo gileach bein kach uvein kach. If it had occurred before the time of his shaving, okay? But remember, he had already done, okay? He became aware of it, okay? But he had already done the offerings, and we already saw an opinion that once you do at least one sprinkling of one offering, okay, what happens, right? He's okay. Bein kach ubein kach, whether it is a tumas, okay, yadua, or a tumas tahom, that's what that means. So tear, that would forfeit. Ketzad, how could that be? Let's take an example, says the Mishnah. Okay, namely, he had become tameh from tumas sheretz, and now he's going into the local cave that has a pool in it. Okay, to become tahor from tumas sheretz. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is suggesting as the scenario. Okay, Ketzad yarad litbol b'ma'ara. He went down to take a dip in a cave that had a pool in it, right? From, let's say, tumas sheretz. V'nimtza meis tzaf al pi ha'ma'ara, and he sees a dead body floating in the water there in that cave. Okay, tameh. Okay, his presumptive status is going to be that he's tameh. Nimtza mishuka b'karka ha'ma'ara, but were it such that the corpse was stuck at the bottom of the water in the ground, okay, there, right? What happens? And yarad lahaker, and he has simply gone in to cool off, Okay, tahor, the person would be tahor. Okay, right? So what happens? Okay, because we're going to see that's going to be part of the definition of tumas tahom. Okay, so what happens, right? So here, okay, but we're saying there's a difference here between tuma yedua and tuma tahom. Okay, that's what he's trying to. The Gemara Mishnah is going to tell us. Okay, so Yorad lahakir, he went to cool off in this cave pool, tahor. Right. So the Gemara then goes on. L'taher mitumas meis tame. Okay, but were he to be going to immerse himself from a level of tumas meis, he would be remain in a status of being tame. Okay, shechazkat tame, that the chazaka, the presumption of his status doesn't change. Okay, if he was tumas meis, okay, and then this is the situation, he retains that status of tumas meis. B'chezkat tahor, but the chazaka, the presumption for somebody who's tahor, is that they are tahor. Sheraglayim ledavar, okay, because we have a basis on which to determine that. Okay, right? Because we've said already, by the way, that tumas tahom won't forfeit. Okay? Now, what happens? Gemara, minahani mili. On what basis can we perhaps find a Torah determination where we might say that tumas tahom does not cause forfeiture? Okay. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, he says as follows: the Amar Kra, and then he's basing it on a pasuk. V'chiyamut meis alav b'peta pidom. If somebody dies suddenly, okay, what's the situation? Alav, I means, okay, in other words, in his, I'm going to say proximity, in his knowledge, in his awareness. Okay, okay. So what do we mean by alav then? B'mechuveret lo, that it's clear to him. That's, he's aware of it. Okay. Reish Lakish Amar Kra, says Reish Lakish, I'm going to use a different pasuk than Rabbi Eliezer did. Ki yetame lenefesh obederech rechoka. He's going to use that pasuk still for the same proof that tumas tahom does not cause forfeiture. Okay, namely, how does Reish Lakish darshan it? Ki derech, like a road, namely, ma derech begalui, the same way a road is revealed, open, aware. Excuse me, af kol begalui. So likewise, there too, he must be revealed, aware of that. Ve'ela, rather, haditnan. But don't we have it taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, the following? Ezohi tumas hatahom. How do we define a tumas tahom, an unknowable or an unknown cause of tumor? Kol she'eno makira echad b'sof ha'olam, where there is no one who is aware of it, okay, even in the whole world, suppose. Aval makira echad b'sof ha'olam, but were there to be others aware of that tumor, ein zo tumat tahom, that would not be considered in the category of defined as tumat tahom. Okay, so the Gemara picks up and continues. Bishlem elaman da'amar kidera. Okay, that definition of tumat tahom is acceptable to Reish Lakish, right? Who compared it to kiderech, to like a road, that it's visible, aware. Shapir, that's appropriately said. Elelaman da'amar b'muchuveret lo, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, who said that it has to be clear to him, okay, to that individual when he's aware of it. Ki makira, okay, echad misof ha'olam ma'ihav. Then if there is somebody else, okay, wherever, okay, who would be aware of a tumah there, then how can we call that tumas tahom, right? So what happens? But two, and furthermore, hatanya, the Tanya, isn't it also taught elsewhere in a bright? Hamotzei meit mushkav l'rechava shel derech. If we find a corpse or a body stretched out there on the road,
Very believable.
okay, all right, and we're assuming that it is that the road is going one way and the mace is across the other way, all right, right? What happens in that situation? Bitruma tame, regarding regarding truma, if the person is a kohen, he cannot eat from it, right? Benazir ubisiat pesach, but in the case of the person who is a Nazareth or on his way to do his korban pesach, okay, appropriate time frame here, right? Tahor, that person would be still tahor. In other words, they're offering or they're coming back from having done their korban pesach.
They're on
No,
the
either
way.
On the way.
Back is irrelevant.
Right? It does not render him
Tame.
tame to bring his korban. Okay, so Mara asks, "My shna, what's the difference? Ele tumat hatahom, gemara gemirela. What is the difference? Is the fact that
Between the two,
to
Kohen
create the
and
different
Kohen.
situations is that we say that tumas tahom is part of a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Okay. Now we go on back to our Mishnah. Im ad shelo gileya, if he did not learn about it up till the time of his shaving, mantana.
No, if he hasn't yet shaved and then he learns. Before he shaves, he finds.
Right, up to the time of his shaving, that's when he discovered he was tummy.
He
Okay,
is not yet shaved.
right, yeah, right. That's why I said up to the time. Mantana, who is the Tana that teaches this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Eliezer. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. The Amar, excuse me, who says Tiglachet Ma'akevet. Okay, that the shaving is such an integral part. Okay, is that without it, it does not render the person complete. Right? By Rami Bar Chama. And so Rami Bar Chama asks the following: Nitma betoch melaot. Let's assume that he became tamei during the completion of his Nazareth, okay? But it's between, let's say, the offerings and the shave. Right? I'm just throwing that out there. V'noda le'achar melaot. Okay, but it did not become he did not become aware of his tuma, okay, till after the purification process. What's the situation? Bataya dia azli. Do we follow after his awareness? Is that what we go? Viyadia achar milaoti, and his awareness of his tuma did not occur until the completion of his Naziris process. Oh no, or not. Ulamai, and why does that make a difference? Lamistar, in court of, okay, in terms of his forfeiture. Okay, right. Amar Rava, says Rava, trying to come back now and give an answer to right, to the question of Rami Bar Chama. Tashma, listen to the following, he suggests. Okay, im ad shelo gileach, if it occurred, if his awareness occurred, okay, before the time of shaving, bein kachu vein kach soter. Our Mishnah said, either way, whether it was a tuma yadua or a tuma tahom, right? he forfeits. Hechidami, how is that possible? Ida it yada, if he had become aware, lay betoch melaot, during the time of his Nazareth completion, tzricha lamema, shouldn't our Mishnah have said that? El lav v'achar melaot shmamina. No, it must be that it occurred, his awareness occurred after the completion of his Nazareth process. That's what it must be
After
telling
the
you.
30 days, but before the ritual.
Right? So what happens? Va'adayin tabayla. But still, you could ask the following question: Kulo soter, or shiva soter? Remember, it was Rabbi Eliezer who had said that all he loses is that those. Right?
All he needs is
If
7
he
days.
7
to withdraw
days.
his-
30,
Right.
he just does
Right, he
that.
just the 7, right? That's all he loses. That's what I was saying. All right. So does it abstain, forfeit everything, or is it just the 7? Okay, that those days of Tahara. So he would have to observe. Right? Laman, according to whom? Elaim la Rabbanan, if we're saying according to the rabbis, Pshita de Kulo Soter. It's understandable that they would say he would forfeit the whole thing. Okay? The Rabbi Eliezer, but if it's according to Rabbi Eliezer, kol achar milaot shiva soter, that if it's after the Nazareth process, and that's when he learns, then he only forfeits 7.
After the 30 days and before.
Right, he's done the 30 days. Right, that's clear. Amarlach, but he might tell us. Hani mili kinit ma'achar milaot v'hai lifnei milaot. Okay, that only applied when it was totally after the Nazareth process. But here, this occurred maybe before the completion of the Nazareth process. Namely, yes, he finished his 30 days. Okay, and maybe he even did some of his offerings. Okay, but the process wasn't completed yet, because Rabbi Eliezer still holds that tiglachet ma'akevin, right? So what happens? O Dilma, or perhaps Shani Hacha. Maybe it's different here. The idea achar mila'oti, that his acknowledgement, his awareness didn't occur till after the entire Nazareth process. Umina, okay, and from here, Katani, in other words, from our Mishnah, we learn Katani, bein kachu vein kach soter, that regardless of whatever kind of tumah it was, he forfeits. Right? Right. Velo kimiflige. But that's not what they're arguing about. The Tanu Rabbanan, okay, because we find a Braita that tells us, Hamotse meit mutal rechava shalda. What? Right. Okay. Okay, but they're coming back to that example that was said before. It's a new, a side tangent.
Right.
Okay.
Tumas tahon.
Right. Okay, so a side tangent. Okay, but remember we mentioned that as an example. So what happens? What about the fact that one does find a corpse there lying across the road? All right. We said there in that example, litrumat tameh, that were it to be a kohen, the person would be unable to eat truma, right? Because he would be tameh. But whereas it was a nazir or a pesach, okay, the Nazirite or one who was on their way to bring their korban pesach, tahor, they would be tahor. Bamed varim amorim, what are we talking about? She'ein lo makom la'avor. There we're talking about that the way the body was stretched across the road, there would be no way for him to avoid it. Okay, he would have to have stepped over it in some way. Okay, that's the point. All right. Okay. Aval yesh lo makom la'avor. But if there was some way that he could have avoided it, okay, all right, maybe it was like a 2-lane highway instead of a one lane and the body was only on one lane, or maybe instead, okay, the body wasn't horizontally across the road, but vertically, I don't know. Okay,
This is a
Then
clue
this-
because he may have walked on it, but there's a
we
possibility.
don't
he
know.
didn't.
Right.
Yes, but we know
Therefore,
that
some of it is
Bishus
around.
Rabin,
So that's
something.
why.
All right, but that's the, but we're going to say, if this is B'shusa Rabim, right, that's the question. Af the Truma Tahor. So then shouldn't he also, if he could have avoided it, shouldn't the Kohen then also be Tahor for Truma? B'med Varim Amorim, Shematzu Shalem, that he found the body whole. Aval Mishubar or Mifurak, but if the body was broken up, okay, or bones were separated, okay, a little, some of the bones here, some of the bones there, right? Afilu bones, yeah, I thought of that too. Afilu ein makom la'avor, and there would be no way for him to avoid some contact, right? Some approachment. Chayshina shema bein prakim ava. Maybe we should suspect that he could walk between the limbs, right?
And there was room to pass.
Right? But ubakevin,
He would have to wiggle his way.
right? He would, no, he wouldn't walk straight. He would go a little left, a little right, back
He
and
would
forth.
wiggle.
Zigzag is what he's saying. He would have to zigzag. Okay?
Nonetheless, we give him.
However,
benefit of the doubt.
Okay? Ubekever, but if this was a kever then, okay, where the bones are considered gathered together, remember? Afilu mishuba umefurak tame. Okay? Then even if the bones were broken up or separated, he would be tame. Why? Mipnei shekever mitzarfo. Okay? Because we say
Being that the kever is the full width
of the road. Exactly. Okay, that's the point. Okay, so what happens? We go further. All right. B'med varim amorim, what are we talking about? B'mahalech b'raglav, that he's walking on this roadway. Aval ta'un. Okay, so maybe he could zigzag, maybe he can move, okay, to avoid the whatever, okay, in that way. If he's walking upright and he can, and he doesn't have no way, right? He can, it's more easily to zigzag. But, says our Gemara, aval ta'un, if he's carrying some sort of a burden, which makes him bent over, makes it harder for him to zigzag. Okay?
It's more likely to my arm.
And therefore he was more likely to a situation of ohel. Okay, that's the point that the Gemara is telling us. Orachuv. Okay, so if he's bent over, burdened by a load, all right, that's ohel. Or if he's riding, okay, on an animal, tame. Tame, exactly. Lafisha mehalech baraglav. Why, says the Gemara? Because if he's simply walking on his own two legs, if shalo yiga, it may be possible that we said that he can zigzag and not have any contact. V'shalo yasit, okay, or he's not going to move it. V'shalo yahil, or he won't have any situation of ohel, body being over them, right?
For the horse.
Okay, right. Ta'un, but if he's burdened with a load, or rachuv, or he's riding on an animal, okay, right? Efshar shelo yiga v'shelo yasit v'shelo yahil. It would be impossible then for him not to have some contact, or not to have move it somewhat, or not to have any situation of ohel in that of being over these bones. B'med varim amurim. What are we talking about then? Betumat hatahom. We're talking about a tuma from a source that's not known to everybody. Aval tuma yedua. But if we're talking about a source of tuma that it's knowledgeable by people, right? Shalosh tan tmeim. Then all three are tameh. The kohen in regards to truma, the nazir, and the person bringing the on the way to the Pesach offering. Okay, right? That's all three. That's what the three refer to. Okay? Now, so now we come back. Ve'ezohi tumat hatahom. So now we come back to our earlier question of how then do we define a tumat tahom? Kol she'ein makira echad b'sof ha'olam. We come back with the very same definition.
Before we had two choices, now it's resolved.
Okay, right now he's going to say clearly what is it? It's got to be a source of tuma that people aren't aware of. Okay, makira echad b'sof ha'olam. But if it is a source of tuma where some, at least some
Somebody
people
somewhere knows
knows it, all right, and we're going to get to that as we finish up the Gemara today. All right, as examples, right? Ein zo tumat tahom. That is not considered an unknowable source of tuma. So what's an example? All right, says the Gemara. If you still don't understand the difference, okay? Hayat tamun beteven o betrurot. If this corpse was covered over by straw or by rocks, pebbles, okay? Harei zet tumat tahom. That would be a possible definition of a unknown source. Biyamim, but if that body was in the seas,
water.
okay, in water, uba'afela, or in some dark place, ubenekike haslaim, or in the cracks and crevices among rocks, okay, ein zo tumat hatahom. That is not considered tumas tahom. Why? Because ultimately that body or those remains would be found. Okay, a corpse would float ultimately.
Or the
Okay,
sun had come up.
or
and
this.
revealed it.
Okay, or in the dark place, the sun would show it, or
People would see through
or-
the cracks.
cracks in rocks. Right, one would be able to see if they're out there. Be able to see. Oh, there's something there. Okay. I didn't think of mountain climbing. I was thinking more of a earthquake kind of
Well,
situation.
wait, if they.
Okay,
Right.
but in any case, the point is, it would be visible in those three situations. It would be visible to somebody. And that then removes, okay, it would be visible to somebody.
I'll give you a case. Not far from here, there's a lake when you go down there. Guy was driving a car, he went into it for 16 years. That in the car laid the body. Nobody could find it.
Okay, so that was too much to harm.
16 years. There's a big difference between tomorrow or the next day.
Right.
But if it's just the body, it gets bloated and floats.
But it was in a
Yeah.
car.
I
So that would
understand
be
that.
different.
So that would be, I would think that might very well fit the definition of tumas tahom,
Home.
Yeah. right? That example. Okay. So that's what we're saying. In those situations, ein zo tumas tahom. Velo amru tumas tahom ela lameis bilvad. Okay, and that finishes what your point is, Sid. All right, that there was extraordinary circumstances that would weigh the body down and keep it there. Okay, just to finish up, Ketzad Yared, what are we talking about here? All right, in this situation,
The guy went into the water in the cavern.
right? So what happens here? Right, Ketzad Yared, Sipa Einam mitam'at le'inyan sheretz, right? Right, so we're there, what we're saying is, okay, that the sheretz does not defile the tongue.
Floating
Sheretz, right,
does
We
not
said the
transfer to
the
someone
body-
who goes in that
right.
water.
The body of the corpse would convey tuma, but not that of the sheretz, right? The Tanya, safek tumat safa, bein b'kelim, bein b'karka, right? That we're saying it's floating, question of whether it's in a vessel or it's in a non-vessel.
Whether the water
Is in a container or not. That's the issue, right?
So
Right.
go in a swimming pool with a gecko, you're
You're out.
First of all, it's gotta be dead.
a dead gecko.
Dead gecko. If it's there swimming, you don't worry about it.
Where it's a sheriff.
Okay, just be careful that it's only a gecko and not an alligator. That's what you get.
And that it's dead and not alive.
Yeah.
You were particular, Bob.
The Tanya. All right, Safek Tumatzi Pa Bain Bakalim Bain Bakarka. But haven't we learned about a Mishnah, a Braita that says that if it's questionable, right? Right, floating, right? Okay, whether it depends on whether it's in a container or on the tahora, that person is tahor. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Bakalim Tmeya, Bakarka tahora. That's what Rabbi Shimon is, and we'll pick up there tomorrow and go over the top of some.
I will, tomorrow is the case of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi Green.
The eye doctor asked.
No,
no.
Okay, don't
If
forget
the dead
about
body is on a Chevy.
tomorrow
Okay.
morning, lift Jay.
If the dead body is on a Chevy.
That's it?